I never thought a marriage experiment would start with a spreadsheet and end with suspicion, but that's how it happened. 3 days after I got back from a business trip to Austin, Chloe hit me with the idea over breakfast. We were sitting at our little kitchen table, the one by the bay window that we picked out together during happier days. She had her coffee in one hand and this oddly determined look in her eyes. No small talk, no warm-up, just this calm, calculated pitch. "I think we should switch roles for a week," she said. I was still half asleep, staring into my cereal like it held the meaning of life. "Switch roles?" "Yeah," she said. "I mean really switch. You handle the house, cooking, cleaning, budgeting, errands. I take on your work at the warehouse. I want to prove I can manage logistics just as well as you. Maybe even better." I blinked at her. I hadn't even finished shaking the rust off from the trip, and now I was being volunteered into a gender-dynamic social experiment? "Okay," I said slowly. "Why?" She leaned forward a little, elbows on the table. "Because I'm tired of you thinking your work is more important. That it's harder. You get recognition, you get structure. I get emotional labor and laundry. I want to show you what I deal with, and I want to experience what you do too. Equal footing. That's the idea." Now, I want to be clear, Chloe's no slouch. She's smart, driven, organized to a fault. That's part of what drew me to her. But this idea, it came out of nowhere. There hadn't been a big argument or meltdown leading up to it. No shouting match about socks on the floor or an empty gas tank. It was just this. Still, I agreed. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe curiosity. Maybe I just wanted to avoid another quiet war across the dinner table. Either way, we shook on it. 1 week. Full reversal. We even set ground rules. I wouldn't interfere with her work at the warehouse, and she wouldn't help with the house unless asked. The next morning, she left early, earlier than she ever did when I was the one heading to the warehouse. She had this pep in her step, like she was gearing up for something big. Maybe she was. She wore heels and a blazer, and spritzed herself with the perfume I bought her last Christmas. The one she only wears on important days. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Wish me luck, house husband." I chuckled. But when the door closed behind her, something about it felt final. I made coffee, then sat down at the kitchen table with our shared laptop. We use it for basic stuff, groceries, budget spreadsheets, calendar syncing. I opened a new document to list the day's tasks. Laundry, meal prep, grocery run, maybe reorganize the pantry if time allowed. But then something odd caught my eye. A browser window was open. Normally, I just close it. Chloe's always been the one to leave a dozen tabs open. Articles, recipes, online courses she never finishes. But this one wasn't some BuzzFeed quiz or avocado toast recipe. It was a hotel booking confirmation. Downtown Austin. 2-night stay. 4-star place, expensive but not flashy. And the name on the reservation? Milo Bennett. I stared at it for a while, blinking like I'd misread it. But there it was. Milo Bennett. Booked for 2 nights, check-in Friday, check-out Sunday. The exact same weekend Chloe had told me she was at a leadership seminar. That weekend when she said she'd be in back-to-back breakout sessions and couldn't FaceTime. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I really didn't. But the name stuck with me. Milo Bennett. I remembered it because it came up a few months ago, when Chloe mentioned a rising star from one of her networking groups. "Milo's brilliant," she had said, kind of offhand, like she was talking about a speaker or mentor. "He runs his own consulting firm. You should see the way he pitches strategy." At the time, I didn't think anything of it. I trusted her. She's allowed to admire other people. We all are. But now, staring at that reservation, the same weekend she said she was at a seminar, the same city I had just returned from, I felt a pit open in my stomach. I told myself it could be innocent. Maybe it was a shared room block. Maybe someone forwarded her the confirmation. Maybe she just forgot to close the tab. Still, I couldn't let it go. When she got home that night, I tried to bring it up casually. We were unloading the dishwasher, and I asked, "Hey, that hotel you mentioned for the seminar, was it the Grand Austin by the river?" She didn't even flinch. "No, I was at the Sherwood." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondered." I saw a confirmation email for a different hotel on the laptop. Thought maybe it was yours. She paused just long enough for it to matter. Oh yeah, no, that's not mine. Probably junk mail or something from a friend. I let Tanya use my rewards login once. Then she changed the subject. Asked if I had remembered to defrost the chicken. When I pressed, just lightly, she said I was being weirdly controlling. That hit me sideways. Controlling? All I did was ask. She laughed it off and poured herself a glass of wine. Don't be paranoid, she said, brushing past me like it was nothing. Not everything's a conspiracy. Maybe not. But something had shifted. Not just between us, inside me. I didn't say anything else about the hotel, but I took **TS. I saved the file and emailed it to myself. Just in case. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the way she breathed slow, even, peaceful. I used to find comfort in that rhythm. But now, it felt unfamiliar, like I was lying beside a stranger. My mind kept circling back to little things I'd ignored for months. The sudden networking events that ran late into the night, the phone she started locking with a new passcode, the new gym obsession that didn't show any results but gave her hours away from home. There was a time I would have chalked it up to stress, a mid-career shift, boredom, maybe even a personal crisis. But now, I wasn't so sure. The next morning, she left for the warehouse again. Same perfume, same blazer, same bounce in her step. She kissed me on the forehead this time, not the lips, and I sat there, in a spotless kitchen, holding a coffee cup I didn't remember making, wondering if this entire experiment was just a cover story, a way to reset the narrative, or maybe just to distract me long enough so I wouldn't look too closely. But I was looking now, closer than ever, and what I was starting to see, it didn't look like equity. It looked like escape. By midweek, the house looked like it had never been lived in. Floors were spotless, pantry alphabetized, bathroom counters clear. I even installed a new budgeting app and synced it to our shared expenses. Mostly because I needed something to focus on besides the ever-growing knot in my chest. But even when I tried to be present, folding towels, grocery shopping, planning dinner, my mind kept drifting. Not toward the experiment, but toward her, Chloe, and Milo. I couldn't stop thinking about that hotel confirmation, about the way she dismissed it like I'd imagined the whole thing. The look in her eyes when she pivoted, smooth and practiced, redirecting the conversation toward chicken or trash pickup or literally anything else. I knew that look. It wasn't fear. It was calculation. And now that I'd seen it, really seen it, I started noticing things I'd brushed off before, like her gym obsession. She started last fall, right before Halloween. Said she wanted to feel stronger, healthier. This is for me, she told me, eyes blazing with this proud kind of energy. And I supported it. I even bought her new headphones and a yoga mat. But the workouts got longer. Then later, she'd go at 7 p.m. and not come back until 10. Sometimes she came home in fresh clothes, already showered, makeup redone. I asked once, jokingly, "What kind of gym has a full salon?" She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "It's called self-care, babe." Back then, I believed her. Now, I wasn't so sure. And it wasn't just the gym. It was the phone, the one she used to leave on the nightstand, unlocked, screen up. Lately, it was always face down, on silent, or suddenly dead. She used to scroll Instagram while we watched movies. Now she scrolled in private, in rooms with closed doors. When I asked about the new passcode, she said she changed it for security. "Work's cracking down," she said. "There's been data leaks. Reasonable, professional, clean." But then I remembered something else, how she used to share memes with me. Funny stuff, animal videos, relationship jokes. For months, nothing. Her digital silence started long before the hotel tab. I just hadn't noticed. Now, every little inconsistency felt like a breadcrumb. Not enough to scream affair, but just enough to ask, what the hell is going on? There were the business trips, too. Chloe's company wasn't the type that flew people around willy-nilly. But suddenly, she was traveling every other month, San Diego, Phoenix, Boston, then Austin. Always strategic growth meetings or training seminars. Always at boutique hotels instead of the standard chains her company usually used. I remembered one trip in particular, Denver, I think. She texted me around 9 p.m. Said she was exhausted and going to bed early. That same night, her Instagram story showed a rooftop cocktail. 2 glasses, no captions. I remember pausing, rewatching it twice, thinking, who's the second drink for? When I asked later, she claimed it was a coworker. Female. Didn't mention a name. Another time, she posted a photo from a work lunch, but her plate was empty, just a fork and a wine glass. She claimed she forgot to take the picture earlier. Maybe I wouldn't have thought twice if it weren't for the growing stack of contradictions. Even her stories had become more hollow, like she was filling in a script rather than describing her day. Warehouse was chaos, she'd say. Truck got delayed, system glitched. Total mess. No details. No names. No actual frustration. I'd worked that job. I knew what chaos felt like. She was describing a blur, not a day. Still, I didn't confront her. Not directly. Part of me didn't want to believe what I already knew. The other part needed more evidence, more time, more certainty. I didn't want to accuse her of something and be wrong. I didn't want to break our marriage over a gut feeling. But I also couldn't pretend everything was fine. On day 4 of the experiment, I cleaned out the hallway closet. Not because it needed organizing, but because it gave me an excuse to be near her purse while she showered. I didn't go through it. I just stood there, next to the open closet, pretending to untangle extension cords while staring at her bag. Zip tight, phone tucked inside. I never touched it, but the fact that I even thought about it, that scared me. That night, she made dinner or tried. Overcooked chicken and store-bought mashed potatoes. Said she was too tired to try anything ambitious. She looked distracted, eyes flitting toward her phone every 5 minutes. At one point, it buzzed, and she grabbed it so fast she nearly knocked over her wine glass. "Everything okay?" I asked. She nodded without looking up. "Yeah, just work. Warehouse stuff." But she kept typing, eyes locked on the screen. Her lips curled slightly. Not a smile, but something close. I watched her from across the table and wondered how long she'd been somewhere else. Mentally, emotionally, maybe even physically. That night, while she slept, I went back to our shared laptop. The hotel tab was gone, of course. She'd cleared the history, but I wasn't looking for tabs. I opened our shared Dropbox, the one we used for taxes and receipts. Buried in the folders was a file titled Q4 Travel Expenses. It was hers. Mostly work stuff, flights, Ubers, scanned receipts. But 2 entries stood out: B Hotel Group Austin and Champagne Service Balcony Add-on. Both charged to her personal card. Both dated the same weekend she claimed to be at that seminar. My chest tightened. I Googled the hotel. Boutique, riverfront, adult only, known for couples packages. Not exactly corporate seminar material. The champagne add-on came with a handwritten note from the concierge. "Thank you for celebrating with us, Ms. Rivers." Ms. Rivers. Not Chloe Rivers. Just an initial. C. Rivers. I took a screensh *T. Then another. Then backed up the file to a private drive. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was data. Names. Numbers. Dates. I went to the browser and opened our Google Calendar. Checked hers. Scrolled back. Sure enough, the weekend she was supposedly training. Her calendar was marked, out of office, Milo Sync. My stomach dropped. Milo Sync. She had logged it. Right there in our shared calendar. I clicked on the event. It had a location, the same hotel. My hand hovered over the trackpad. I didn't feel rage. I felt hollow, like my heart had been replaced with something mechanical, cold, exact, distant. I closed the laptop. The dog stirred. Chloe sighed in her sleep. I lay beside her and stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering how long I'd been asleep while she was wide awake. Building a second life inside the shell of our marriage. The worst part? I didn't feel shocked. I felt confirmed. The morning of day 5, Chloe left early again. Something about a supplier meeting she had to prep for. She kissed me on the cheek without making eye contact and rushed out the door, keys in one hand, travel mug in the other. Her blazer was new. Her perfume was back. And her voice had that slightly too energetic tone I used to think meant ambition. Now it just sounded like performance. I stood at the window and watched her drive off. I wasn't interested in folding laundry that morning, or mopping, or meal planning. What I wanted, what I needed, was truth. Not another vague excuse or half-smile. Not another "babe, you're overthinking." I wanted something undeniable. So I opened her Q4 travel expenses folder again. Dug deeper. There were dozens of entries, line items, scanned receipts, summaries she probably never thought I'd see. I clicked into the Austin subfolder. There it was again. B Hotel Group, timestamped, tagged under personal card. A matching receipt from a rideshare app showed a trip from the airport to the hotel. Then another 2 days later, headed back. Consistent. Clean. Too clean. My stomach turned as I opened the next PDF. Reservation confirmation, C. Rivers. Thank you for choosing B Hotel Group for your romantic weekend stay. We hope the champagne, balcony view, and rooftop brunch exceeded expectations. We look forward to welcoming you back. There was even a photo embedded at the bottom. A complimentary keepsake from the hotel's couple's arrival package. 2 flutes of champagne, a small fruit plate, a view of the riverfront skyline, and the edge of a man's suit jacket sleeve just barely in the frame. I stared at that sliver of dark fabric like it held all the answers. Didn't, but I knew who it belonged to. I didn't need to see his face. Milo. The way she had spoken about him, in passing, was telling in hindsight. He just gets how chaotic logistics can be. You'd like him, he's direct. He travels a lot, like you used to. Like I used to. I saved the image and receipts, zipped them into a private folder, backed up the folder twice. Then I opened our call logs. We share a cloud account, something I set up years ago so we could avoid duplicate charges and simplify taxes. Chloe had never cared about it. I doubt she remembered it even synced texts and call history. The call logs painted a picture I already knew the outline of. Texts every night she was working late. Call durations of 20, 30 minutes around midnight. All from the same number. Not saved under a name, just a 10-digit string that repeated like a drumbeat. I ran a quick reverse lookup. Milo Bennett. Business line. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It wasn't even suspicion. This was betrayal, wrapped in data, stamped with timestamps, documented in her own hand. She hadn't just lied. She'd documented the lie with corporate efficiency. And somehow that hurt more than if she'd tried to erase it all. It meant she wasn't hiding out of guilt. She was just assuming I'd never look. That I'd keep playing the part. The stable, trusting husband who folds the towels the way she likes and doesn't ask too many questions. But I had questions now. Not just about what happened, that part was clear, but about who she had become. That afternoon I got an email. Subject: Survey. Thank you for your stay. C. Rivers. Body. We value your feedback. Please tell us how we did. Were the balcony, champagne, and rooftop yoga to your liking? I laughed. Out loud. Alone in the kitchen. It wasn't even bitter. It was absurd. A yoga session for 2. On the roof. During a weekend she swore she spent in a windowless conference room learning procurement metrics. I forwarded the email to myself. Attached it to the same folder with everything else. Then I opened our shared calendar. She had marked the weekend leadership seminar. All-day events both Saturday and Sunday. No location. No notes. But one event stood out. On Sunday, just before her return flight, there was a small entry. Wrap up MB. MB. Milo Bennett. She wasn't hiding it. She wasn't even trying. That night, she came home late. Not warehouse late, deliberately late. She wore a red blouse I'd never seen before, and her lipstick was fresh, as if she'd reapplied it in the car. Dinner smells amazing, she said, hanging her bag on the hook. I nodded. It'll be ready in 5. We sat. ate in silence for a while. She made small talk about traffic, about a truck that stalled near the loading dock. She said something about a missing shipment of zip ties. I nodded at the right moments, asked no questions, just observed. Her eyes didn't meet mine. Her phone stayed near her fork. She tapped it every few minutes like she was waiting for a signal. After dinner, she went upstairs, said she needed to answer some work emails. I stayed behind. I gathered the folder I had printed. Not all of it, just a taste. The hotel receipt, the balcony photo, the call log, a copy of the romantic weekend email, all neatly clipped together. I didn't confront her. I didn't shout. I didn't ask why. I left the papers on the kitchen table, right next to her favorite wine glass. No note, no message. Let her find it. Let her read it. She didn't come back down. The next morning, I got up early and made breakfast. She came down in sweatpants, no makeup. I was puffy, not from sleep. She avoided the papers, looked at them once, then walked past them to pour coffee. "You're up early," she said quietly. "Plenty to do," I replied, flipping pancakes. Day 6 of the experiment. She hesitated. "I was thinking maybe I'd take today off." "From the warehouse?" I asked. She nodded, keeping her eyes on the mug. "I'm just drained." I didn't argue, didn't offer sympathy, just plated her food and slid it across the counter. She didn't touch it. She left the room and didn't come back for hours. Later that day, I opened our shared banking app and unlinked her devices. I revoked access to our autopay setup and rerouted our joint funds to a separate backup account I'd kept dormant since we got married. Not out of spite, out of clarity. I didn't slam doors or change locks, but I was done pretending. The equality she wanted to prove, the grand marriage experiment, had collapsed under the weight of her own fiction. And now I was done participating in a story she no longer had the right to narrate. It's strange how someone can lie so smoothly until silence forces them to hear themselves. The morning after I left the documents on the table, Chloe didn't speak a word about them. She moved through the kitchen like nothing had happened, filled her coffee mug, toasted some bread, scrolled her phone. Her eyes flicked to the papers exactly once, and then never again, as if by not acknowledging them, she could wish them out of existence. But her silence said everything. She didn't ask what I'd seen. She didn't try to explain. She didn't even deny. She just performed. She asked if I needed help with the laundry. I said no. She offered to take the dog for a walk. I said I already had. By mid-morning, she told me she was feeling a little off and didn't think she could make it to the warehouse. "Still tired," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Just need a day to reset." I nodded. "Take whatever time you need." The irony wasn't lost on me. 4 days into this big empowerment experiment, and she was already bowing out. The same woman who said she wanted to challenge outdated marriage roles was now skipping her end of the deal because of fatigue. I didn't rub it in, didn't gloat. I just grabbed my laptop, packed my things, and told her I was heading into the office. I had no meetings scheduled. I just needed space and distance. At the warehouse, things felt normal, familiar, a little dull maybe, but stable. People waved. Someone asked if Chloe was enjoying the switch. I said, "She's learning a lot." Left it at that. In my office, I sat down, opened my files, and began sorting through the damage. Not emotional damage, that came later. I mean the logistical kind, the money trail, the loose ends. I changed the passwords to our joint accounts, set up two-factor authentication, froze our shared credit card, and ordered a new one in my name only. I removed her as an authorized user on anything tied to my identity. This wasn't revenge. It was control. Quiet, methodical reclamation. She had chosen chaos. I was choosing order. By noon, I had my own bank account fully active again, the same one I'd closed when we got married, now reopened under a new structure. I moved over part of our savings, just enough to function independently if I needed to leave quickly. I made sure nothing flagged the account, no alerts, no text to the shared number, no paper mail to the house. Felt surreal, like I was building a bunker inside a home still furnished with throw pillows and wedding photos. I spent an hour going through our shared cloud storage, cleaning out old files. The folder titled Vacation Planning, gone. Anniversary Gifts, gone. All backed up and archived to a drive only I could access. Not out of spite, just containment. The rest of the day, I worked in a kind of detached trance. Emails, inventory, workflow charts. My hands did the tasks, but my mind was elsewhere, stuck in a loop of second guesses and half-forgotten details. Had she been unhappy for months? Had she always been this person and I just didn't see it? Or had she changed while I stayed loyal to an older version of her? The one who used to leave me sticky notes on my lunch bag that said things like, "You're my constant." That night I came home late. The house was dim and still. The dishes from lunch were still in the sink. And the dog looked at me like he'd spent the day waiting for someone who never really showed up. Chloe was on the couch in sweats, watching a cooking show she used to binge before she got too busy for TV. She looked up when I walked in. "Hey," she said, voice soft. I said nothing. "I made dinner," she added. "Chicken stir-fry." I glanced at the pan on the stove. Still warm. 2 plates set. Chopsticks. Cloth napkins. It looked almost ceremonial. "I'm not hungry," I said. She blinked, just once. "Okay." I went upstairs, closed the door, turned on a podcast and lay on the bed fully clothed, trying not to replay the last 3 years of my life in vivid 4K memory. The next day, Chloe tried again. She cleaned the kitchen, wiped the windows, even folded a basket of laundry that I'd already planned to handle. I found her spritzing the couch cushions with fabric spray around noon, like she was trying to erase a scent only she could smell. "You don't have to do all that," I said. She looked up. I want to contribute." I nodded and left the room. That night, she brought out photo albums. Actual, physical albums, the ones we made back when we still printed things on purpose. Our wedding, our first road trip, our dog as a puppy, lying on her chest with one paw on her collarbone. She left them on the coffee table. Didn't say anything. Just left them there. I walked past them without opening a single page. By day 7, the silence between us wasn't passive anymore. It was dense, intentional, like we were both tiptoeing around a glass floor, each waiting for the other to stomp. But I didn't stomp. I floated, cooked, cleaned, managed my work, checked in with family, booked a consultation with a lawyer, discreetly, using an encrypted browser and a fake calendar entry labeled tax review. I archived every message I'd saved, labeled each screenshot *T, sorted documents into categories, receipts, communications, proof of pattern. I wasn't building a case out of bitterness. I was building a life raft, because Chloe wasn't just drowning. She was dragging things under with her. I found myself checking the clock less, watching her less, caring less. She tried to inject warmth where none existed. She laughed at her own stories during dinner. She complimented my haircut, which hadn't changed in months. She offered to make my coffee in the mornings, which she hadn't done since year 2. And the worst part? It all felt like a bad improv sketch. Disconnected lines. No partner to bounce off of. Just one person trying to deliver a monologue to someone already out the door. On the evening of day 7, I got home to find the kitchen spotless. Candles lit. A single handwritten note on the table. It said, "I'm sorry." No explanation. No name. Just 2 words written in looping, uncertain script. I left it where it was. Didn't fold it. Didn't pocket it. Didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop, double-checked my accounts, and sent one final backup of everything to a secure drive, off-site, cloud encrypted. Then I began looking at listings for 1-bedroom apartments. Nothing fancy, just mine, my rules, my name on the lease, my silence, my space. Chloe sat on the couch when I came back into the room, pretending to watch TV. She looked at me once, like she wanted to say something, and then looked away. She didn't know what I knew. She didn't know what I'd already done. And the scariest part? I don't think she wanted to know, because knowing would mean admitting. Admitting would mean losing. And for Chloe, losing control was worse than losing love. When you stop chasing someone, you start seeing them clearly. That's what happened the following week. I stopped asking Chloe where she was going. Stopped reacting to her awkward attempts at affection. Stopped waiting for her to fill the silence with excuses. I stopped performing, and the second I did, something shifted between us. Power isn't always about volume. Sometimes it's about stillness. By Monday, I was back at work full-time. No more apron, no more shared grocery lists, no more morning check-ins. The experiment, as she'd so confidently called it, wasn't just over. It was dismantled. She didn't ask to restart it. She just adapted. Chloe started cooking dinner most nights. Simple meals, pasta, tacos, pre-marinated chicken. But the table was always set for two. Always with cloth napkins. Always with a candle. She never asked if I was staying in. She just hoped I would. I usually didn't. I began staying late at the office. Not because I had to, but because the quiet there didn't demand anything from me. At home, the silence was dense and needy. At work, it was mine. I changed all the passwords. Bank logins. Cloud storage. My email, the Wi-Fi router, even the keyless front door lock. I reset the access code and left hers out of the new profile. Not in a big, dramatic way. Just slowly, quietly, deliberately. She noticed. One morning, she stood by the door holding her phone and said, "Hey, I can't get into the Dropbox." I looked up from my coffee. "Yeah, I consolidated everything." She nodded. "Oh, okay." She didn't push, but I saw it, that flicker in her eyes. Not anger, not confusion. It was fear, not of me, but of what she couldn't control anymore. 2 days later, she asked if we should revisit our budget. I said, "No need. I've got it handled." She paused for a second too long, then said, "Okay," and walked out of the room. She'd never been the kind of person to let things go that easily. She thrived on data, planning, control. But she was starting to realize that she no longer had the wheel, and I wasn't going to offer her a seat beside me again. That Friday, I moved the last of our important documents, tax forms, deeds, marriage license, into a lockbox at the office. I took down the wedding photo in the upstairs hallway and replaced it with a landscape print I bought on a whim. Neutral, unemotional, quiet. She didn't say anything when she saw it. Didn't ask where the photo had gone. She knew. I started keeping my car keys in my jacket pocket instead of the hook by the door. Another small shift. No announcement, no explanation. But one morning, she reached for them to take my car in for service and froze. "You moved them," she said. I nodded. I did. No apology. No explanation. Just fact. She didn't ask to borrow the car again. Later that day, I met with a lawyer. The same one I'd spoken to earlier. This time, it wasn't just exploratory. I brought documentation, laid out a timeline, showed them the receipts, the photos, the call logs. It was the most clinical heartbreak I've ever experienced, reducing years of history into folders and dates. "I'm not looking for revenge," I told her. "Then what are you looking for?" the attorney asked. "Closure," I said, "and clean lines." By the end of the meeting, she had everything she needed to begin drafting the paperwork. No rush, I told her, but it was time. That weekend, I started pulling my clothes out of the shared closet. Not all of them, just the ones I wore often. I folded them neatly, stored them in a small suitcase, and kept it in the trunk of my car. I archived our photo albums, packed them into a bin, and stored it in the attic. I didn't throw anything away. I didn't destroy anything. I just removed it from reach. She noticed. Of course she did. But she said nothing. Instead, she began asking soft, loaded questions. "Do you want to have a movie night?" "No thanks." "Want to go for a walk?" "I'm heading out." "Can we talk?" "Not right now." Each time she looked a little smaller, a little less certain. She'd built her story so carefully. The one where she was underappreciated, the one where she just needed space, the one where I was the safe fallback while she chased growth. But now the scaffolding was crumbling, and all that was left was the flat, inconvenient truth. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I wasn't competing. I wasn't even curious. I was moving on. She began trying harder, cooking more elaborate meals, laughing a little too loud at things that weren't funny, asking about my day like she hadn't spent months not caring. But her tone was brittle, hollow, like she was playing the part of a wife without knowing if the show was still running. One night, she tried a different tactic. "I think we should do a reset," she said. "Wipe the slate. Try again. For real this time." I didn't even look up from my laptop. "We already tried that," I said. "It was called an experiment." She fell silent, then whispered, "You're not even angry." I looked at her then, not cruelly, not coldly, just honestly. "No," I said. "I'm not angry. I'm finished." The next morning, I opened a new bank account entirely in my name and had my paychecks rerouted. I canceled our streaming services, the ones in my name, and replaced them with free trials I didn't share. I left the joint utilities intact, for now. Let her feel it slowly. Chloe began staying up late. I could hear her in the living room, watching old sitcoms she once mocked, scrolling her phone with the brightness turned low. I passed by her one night on my way to bed and noticed she was staring at a blank message thread. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, but she didn't type anything. She looked up and tried to smile. I kept walking. I don't think she understood how fast detachment can happen. How the same person you once wanted to spend every morning with could become someone you didn't want to spend 5 minutes listening to. It's not rage that breaks things. It's disinterest. One night, I sat outside on the back steps, sipping coffee while the dog curled beside me. Chloe slid the screen door open and stood there like a question without words. "I can't fix this, can I?" she said. I didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. You can't fix what you destroyed on purpose.